Greetings, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Reckless a Talk, our TTRPG interview show where we sit down with some of our favorite writers, players, GMs, and streamers to get to know a little bit more about what makes them who they are. I am, as always, your host, GM Nathan, and this week we have a special guest just in time for the holiday season, Chloe and Drew from Everhearth Inn. They are 2/3 of the Emmy-nominated business, website, and online tavern, which is known for cosplay cooking on TikTok, dice, jewelry, character guides, fantastical recipes, and much more. Their quest is to create a fun, comfortable, and friendly online space for D&D enthusiasts worldwide together. They are also people that we happen to know in the real world, so we are very excited to share this one with you all. Because as we ease in, I feel like the three of us start to hit on some really excellent topics surrounding businesses in the TTRPG space that might be useful and haven't really been covered much here on Reckless a Talk, including building a vibe for your brand, having an MVP, done being better than perfect, and much more. All the links to their shop, website, social media, Discord, and all that are available in the show notes, so please go check them out after listening. And that's all for me this week. Hope you all enjoy, and for those of you listening in real time, hope you have a great holiday season and new year. We will return with Reckless Talk in 2023. Now, please enjoy our interview with Everhearth Inn. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Awkward jump-in. Here we are. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, wow. We're here.
Oh, wow. Behold, a podcast that you're on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Just me, though. Not so much the other one. Just thank you for having me personally.
Exactly.
Well, dear guests, we have avoided saying any actual, human meat space names. Who are you? Tell the listeners who you are, where they might know you from, the whole rigmarole.
So we are Everhearth Inn. I am Drew of Everhearth Inn.
And I am Chloe of Everhearth Inn.
And our tagline is where every adventure is online tavern.
Yeah, we have just lots of stuff going on, and I'm sure we'll get into it today.
You are 2/3 of a multinational team, in fact.
True.
Indeed.
Yes, as I understand it.
Multinational, super ambitious. Yes. Our third cohort is Jack, and he's in the UK. It's late o'clock in the UK right now, so he couldn't make it. But he is here in spirit.
And you guys, I think are underselling the amount of various things that you have your collective, I assume, 30 fingers in.
Yes.
I don't want to, just in case someone is missing any digits. You do dice, you do recipes, you do TikToks, you do all kinds of a huge variety of stuff, to the point where you are in fact an Emmy nominated online presence.
Indeed.
In the tabletop role-playing game space.
Yes.
So much to discuss.
Indeed.
But before we get into the kind of both vertical and horizontal megacorp that you have put together in the tabletop role-playing game space, let's get to know you just a little bit. How did you guys get introduced to D&D and to tabletop, and kind of what grabbed you about that moment?
So Jack, our UK friend, he messaged me showing me a link to Critical Role, of course, and he's like, hey, this is for Dungeons and Dragons. I know you haven't really ever looked at it, but I was shown by a friend and it was really cool, and I think you might like it. And we were already good friends, and we were both into fantasy and gaming, and so I knew his recommendation was good. And so I was particularly bored at work one day, and I was just listening to it in the background, and zero idea what D&D was and how it works, but it just really caught me. And Chloe and I were together at the time, and I started sharing it with her, and then I'll let you take over that part of the story.
Yeah, and then I've always been into like fantasy games and everything, like Witcher, Skyrim, but I'd never tried D&D. And then Drew introduced me to Critical Role, and through him we also managed to put together a friend group where we played our first D&D campaign.
Yeah, and so we just kind of bounce around taking turns dungeon mastering and learning the game. Super cringy, railroady plot lines that
No, what? No, that is really cringy. I definitely have never once run any such campaign
No,
ever.
of course
Nope.
not. You
No.
only just Grammy Award winning stories.
Yes, precisely. Exactly.
So yeah, that was our introduction, and we played for a while, bounced around, and then I volunteered to kind of become our perma DM, and that's been the way ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, were you the
Sorry.
DM during that first campaign?
I was DM number 2. It was all in the same world, and we took turns, different
Oh, cool.
campaigns throughout the same world. It was really cool. It was a good starter experience, but then I started getting bigger ambitions for broader plot lines that I wanted to last longer than one campaign. So I volunteered to be a longer term DM, and then that hasn't been turned down yet.
Yeah. Ain't that just the way? As
Yes.
DM, you're like, I'll DM. Everyone's like, great, keep
Yes,
going.
I will.
Go for it.
Yeah, I was
No,
DM
like-
for a bit, and I was just like, I'll be a player. I'll stick with player. This is too stressful. Too many different voices that I need to remember. Too many names.
Poor British accent number 3.
Yeah, exactly. So as you were kind of consuming Critical Role and kind of getting introduced into what like tabletop role playing games actually looked like and felt like, what about the act of playing D&D not just kind of has you continue playing D&D presumably, but also has made you continue to make things about D&D and make content and make dice and have a whole website and all that kind of stuff? What excites you about it? What's the juice for you guys?
I like how it feels like you're in a different world and that you don't have like any worries and you can kind of control the story a bit more than real life maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you just get to be like whoever you want to be. And that's really cool. And you can make new characters that have different personalities and you just get to try out different things and you get to do it with the people that you enjoy hanging out with.
For me, what kind of had me sink into DMing permanently is I am like obsessed with the collaborative storytelling element.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly I love, this is super cheesy, but like seeing people have fun is like, oh, that's everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when I'm telling a story and I can kind of see the story play back to me in their eyes and see their expressions change and get excited about thing or like super nervous or terrified of my next boss, that is like, oh, that's so much just reward. And so seeing that and taking that and trying to expand that into a broader community and bring that sensation to more people is a huge driver for us. There's so much value and like close friendships that can develop because of D&D, and bringing that to the masses is super exciting.
Yeah. What kind of in either in your home games or listening to actual plays or whatever, what are the kind of like tabletop stories that you kind of enjoy? And again, it doesn't need to be specifically named ones, but you know, you like heroes fighting against evil and kind of just good versus bad? Do you like epic? Do you like, oh no, I like the gritty stuff? What are the kind of stories that you kind of find yourself attracted to?
I'm trying to think of how to word it because what I like, I'll let Drew go first and I'll think.
So I tend to write gritty environments, just because I like the. It feels a bit more freeing for me to have characters that have less honor bound desires, and I can write more selfish people, which for me feels like I can drive more story out of that. And so I take a very open world approach to DMing, and I started off with super railroady campaigns and they never really landed as I envisioned. And as our desire to have like a big vast area to explore grew, I knew I had to start adapting my system to accommodate that. And so I have this whole system where I just kind of poop out a whole bunch of characters and factions and everything, and I just come up with random motivations, like what they have and what they want and what they're willing to do to get what they want. And then I lay all that out, and I can just kind of see the storylines already forming of like, this person wants what that person doesn't care about but protects because of guilt or something. And that just kind of happens. And so in a gritty atmosphere, I like that because this can get kind of brutal and violent and is less about good and evil, and is just, I've got a whole bunch of different people who want a whole bunch of different things, and then the story just kind of happens. The players can kind of happen to the world, and then the story sprouts from that interaction.
Absolutely.
I also really enjoy the gritty kind of environment because it's more of a mystery of what's going to happen next. Like, you can't tell, like, oh, this person is for sure good and we're going to go save the town and save the day. It's more like, okay, I'm working for this person, but do they have like everybody's best, I don't know, they have interests in mind. Yeah. And usually it's also not black and white. In Drew's DMing stories, it's like you have to pick one or the other, like the lesser of two evils or the greater of two goods. And it's a lot more realistic in that sense, but also like your decisions are hanging more on not so black and white answers.
Yeah.
And it just makes the story that much more rich and intriguing.
Which is interesting, especially when you are the way you described it up front of being like, I like being able to kind of like shed the problems of the world, right? And just be like, kind of like, I am a new person, I get to explore whatever I want, but also what I want to explore is the gray and the selfishness of mortal.
Yes. But as a different person.
Right, but as a different person, and I get to sometimes, make my voice a little higher, make it lower, make it a little more posh. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So you guys, again, are in a huge kind of array of different spaces. And in different spaces than I feel like a lot of the guests we get here on Reckless Talk. So I'm really excited to kind of like venture into all of that. But first, I wanted to get a little bit of the Everhearth backstory. So first and foremost, how did the three of you guys get connected even before it sounds like you kind of all got into D&D and role playing and now Everhearth?
So I met Jack my freshman year. He was in this freshman year of college, and we were in the same crappy 80-year-old dorm. And he was on a foreign exchange program from the UK, and he was the cool guy who had a British accent. And so we just kind of were in the same places together, and we started just talking, and we're both super nerdy, super into games and fantasy overall. We were just good friends. He introduced me to D&D, but then I met Chloe.
Yeah, we met. I was a freshman, then Drew was a sophomore, so it would have been a year later. We met in an astronomy class and became good friends.
Good friends.
We started dating not too long after meeting, and now we're engaged.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. And I met Jack through Drew.
Mm-hmm. And then he made the trek back to the US for a quick 2-week stint a few years later, and that's when you got to meet him in person. Yeah. I think that was the only time you've met him in person.
Yes, that is true. It's the only time. But it was a good time.
So consuming an actual play to deciding, oh, I would like to do that thing, I would like to play a game, is a step, but that is a much smaller step than playing a game and then being like, let's make a website and do a business and create content around this. And especially for the three of you, like, it's not just one person unilaterally doing it. You three all work on this together. So can you talk me through a little bit the history and kind of decision-making process to you guys ramping up just to go live, let alone to be kind of where you're at today?
Yeah, so we always kind of loved D&D. We also both always wanted to do a business. We never really connected the dots on how. I first started out my kind of creative endeavors making YouTube videos for Tabletop Sim, which
Cool.
I used to make my D&D maps. It was super useful for me, and in that same vein, I wanted to kind of spread out and help others learn about that.
And then I also was interested in making video content just in general, but I didn't really know like what to do.
Yeah, totally.
What would kind of grab people's attention, but also be interesting for me to make.
Yeah, right. What do I actually enjoy doing? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we kind of started. Did we started with just TikTok? Is that true? Or did
We made a few YouTube video game videos.
Oh yeah, we did.
You don't say that with a lot of endorsement or enthusiasm.
Back when PUBG was popular,
Yeah.
we did a couple videos of just kind of gaming and uploaded that. Didn't get too much traction, not as much as Drew's tabletop sim content.
Yeah, the first kind of glimpse of glory was a tabletop sim video I had shared on Reddit, and I got like 40 upvotes, and I got like 1,000 views on that. But I was like freaking out.
Yeah.
And so that was the first like traction we got, and we were just vaguely in this fantasy idea. As time went on, Chloe's a fantastic artist.
Yes, I like creating things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make a product and sell it. And something I was really interested in was handmade resin dice. So I watched a ton of like YouTube videos, or like I think TikTok was popular at that time when I picked it up. And I would just watch people make them or look at pictures online.
Yeah.
Like, wow, these are beautiful and they're all so unique. I wonder if I could do this. So I got a bunch of the stuff and watched a bunch of videos and ended up learning how to do it, and I loved it. So we ended up setting up an Etsy shop. Actually, that was probably one of our first things, along with the TikTok.
So I went to Chloe, and she was learning about crafting all these things, and she's like, it's just so much work to do alone. And so I said, you just craft and I'll sell and handle logistics. And that was kind of the first agreement and kind of birth of Everhearth. And so we made the Etsy shop. Very rewarding. Getting our first order from a stranger was insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you get the support from your friends and everything, and that's special in its own right. But when like a complete stranger finds you and pays you money
for something that you made,
yeah.
I value this.
Yes.
So that was a super rewarding moment for us. And then we started thinking like, okay, TikTok would be a cool thing to attempt. And we had just gotten the D&D cookbook. So we had this idea of just kind of filming rustic fantasy style, just cooking straight from that cookbook.
And this was this like a year-ish ago? Is that correct?
Probably 2 years. I think it was the first wave of COVID.
Got it. When everyone was starting to do tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have kicked myself so much. Like, why didn't we have this realization 6 months earlier? But wouldn't be where we are today if we did things differently. So we started getting this moving casually, and we had this really basic Squarespace website, which is just like a collection of our Etsy and our socials. And every like 6 months or so, I would catch up with Jack, and we'd have these vague discussions of like, yeah, it would be cool to do a business one day, just us each individually. But we never knew like how to connect the dots and what skills we had that were marketable. And so I did not know at the time, but he was getting into digital marketing. So we connected, and we're talking about our new crappy Squarespace website. And he's like, dude, there's potential here. And this is like his game, and getting ranked on Google is his deal. And I know he's very, very passionate about the subject matter anyways. And so we had this pseudo pitch meeting of him saying, this is what I can do. This is how we can make Everhearth into something much, much bigger. And it was a no-brainer. That was the kind of big evolution from us having an Etsy shop and making a few cooking videos to much bigger ambitions of a website with helpful articles and a community and a Patreon and all this stuff.
I actually just checked. Our first TikTok we posted March of last year.
What?
Yeah, 2021.
That's what I
wow.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if we want to correct that or not, but
That's all right. Doesn't matter.
okay.
It's all happening live.
Yeah.
So, was there a point where things started kind of like accelerating for you guys? Can you guys point to one or a handful of spots where it's like, and then this happened, and then things were different?
Probably the first viral TikTok that we had.
Mhm.
Because I remember, so we had a meatball recipe in an Instapot. It was an Instapot meatball recipe. And that was our first, like, really viral video. I think it ended up getting like 1.5 million views.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember Jack coming to us and telling us that the views or the site clicks, his SEO lingo,
Mhm.
that I wish he was here to voice on. But I remember the site clicks were like, I don't remember how much it was, but he was like excited about it.
It was like several tens of thousands of clicks.
Wow.
And that was like previously we were getting like 200 a month. And so there's kind of this moment where this whole huge rush happens, and it's kind of a flash in the pan. You can
Totally.
it ebbs and flows, and that's just how it is. But it's a huge feeling of like justification and legitimizing, and like seeing something get traction and like the demand for it. Like, oh, okay, we're actually onto something here. And then things just started rolling better. We start getting seen on Google more. Our videos do better on average because we have more followers and stuff. And it's just a little bit more legitimizing to the consumer. If you can see that we have more followers, as unexciting as it is, it still just gives your brand a bit more oomph, and people might trust you a little bit more. And so that was the first time that we felt like, okay, we're really able to step on the gas and not be just driving off a cliff. So that was super rewarding.
And what was the first video? Do you remember? The one, quote unquote.
Yeah, I think it was the meatball one.
Oh, that's right. You
Meatballs.
said that.
Yeah.
A lot of people roasted us because it was medieval cooking in Instant Pot.
Yeah,
Well,
so yeah, they were
shortcuts.
like, I don't remember taverns having Skyrim taverns
Ye
having
old
Instant
Instant
Pot.
Pot.
Ye old Instant Pot. Yeah, so we kind of like to sometimes in our videos we'll keep like a little surprise, like a little annoying thing or a mess up, just to see if people will catch it and like comment on it, because the algorithm.
Yeah.
The algorithm. That's right.
The mysterious algorithm.
Absolutely. I went through a lot of your TikToks, especially kind of in preparation for this. And you guys have a kind of very specific like style and very specific kind of like setup and vibe to them. So for this is an audio medium, so I can't exactly just like put on a TikTok for everyone to enjoy right in this moment, splice it in. But also just for people who are kind of want to get a better idea of the kind of stuff that you're putting out there that is catching attention, and see, I did see those people. Could you kind of describe what goes into making an Everhearth, he uses air quotes, TikTok, and what you guys do most of the time and what your content is?
I think a big part of it is envisioning it as the point of view of an adventurer walking into a tavern, and you order this dish and you're watching the tavern keep cook it right in front of you. And so like our angle is you're sat at a table looking down at this counter space, and our lovely tavern keeper Chloe is cooking this for you.
Yeah, I cosplay as an elf, and we try to keep it interesting where the angles will be changed.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get the really aesthetic views, close-up views of our food that we're making at the time, and then at the end, I, the tavern keeper, serve it to you, the patron, and kind of get like a glimpse of taking a bite, essentially, of the of the food.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of serves as the kind of thematic tone setter for what Everhearth is. You're the adventurer scrolling through TikTok in your adventures, and suddenly Everhearth finds you, and it feels safe and welcoming, and you're having a good meal, and this person is happy to have you, and it's kind of the first window into what the hope is for Everhearth in as kind of a place.
Yeah, and we've incorporated some role playing, like voice videos, I guess, as well into our rotation of Everhearth content. And we also, every once in a while, put in some stuff for like our shop or if we're announcing something. But
Mm-hmm.
we keep it mainly food content. That's what gets a lot of views, at least for us. We want to branch out a bit from that, but we haven't too much yet. But
And the cooking is a good tool that we use. Like a cool fantasy recipe can really help set the tone at your table for D&D. And so coming up with fantasy inspired recipes and sharing them with people as a tool to have a more immersive game is the core directive there, and trying to help people improve their game through food is a cool after effect of the recipes.
yeah, we get comments on our videos all the time. Be like, I made this for my D&D group this session and they loved it. Or like, I'm going to make it next Saturday during our game. So we get those pretty often.
And that is so rewarding.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys, kind of bring to the table frequently when you are playing in person?
We have a couple times. I remember one day when we had a big game, we made an entire Skyrim themed feast for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, we don't do it all too often because a lot of our games are kind of hybrid. And
Yeah,
now
half
probably
remote, half
fully
in person.
remote. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And you don't want to tease half the table with
Exactly.
delicious meatballs.
or maybe
and,
we
yeah.
do.
They're just chewing noises throughout the entire game.
So the kind of trajectory is very interesting because it really feels like you guys, kind of chased what was interesting to you and was chased what was working, kind of what was
Mhm.
catching on for people. So at this start, it doesn't sound like you kind of had a super clear vision of like the brand, quote unquote, but you kind of do now, obviously, with specific TikTok vibes, specific branding on your website, all that good stuff. So, and I think we've covered it a bit already, but how do you kind of encapsulate your guys' brand? And what was the process of getting to that and kind of naming it and codifying it? Because that's something that I'm always endlessly interested in, and I think a lot of people can always learn from is how people are branding themselves, even when they kind of put it together on the go, like you guys.
Basically, we wanted Everhearth to be a place where people from anywhere could come and visit and experience a community that's welcoming to them. I'll let Drew explain a bit more, and then we can talk about how we figured out the name.
So, what was super exciting for us and just a cozy vibe that really is deep in our hearts is the feeling of like in Skyrim, it's snowing out and it's a dark night, and you walk into one of the taverns that you stumble upon. That feeling of just warmth and safety, and the barkeep is happy to see you, and there's cool people to listen on. That is so cool. And we don't really have an equivalent to that in real life. We have the closest thing we probably have is game stores, and those are just such a special pillar of the community and must be protected at all costs. But what COVID showed us is that equivalent doesn't really exist online. And so there was a big feeling for us of we wanted to create this feeling of a game store, feeling of a tavern for everybody online. And so the idea of Everhearth Inn as a place is really key to everything we do. We want it to feel like you go to Everhearth and you stay time in Everhearth. And so that's kind of where the name came from. Do you want to explain it?
Well, a part of the name was we were trying to find something that people didn't already have. It didn't exist in a book. And it could also convey like our message. So we thought of Everhearth because it's a hearth that is always lit and always available for people around the globe at any time of day.
And so the idea of Everhearth being a place is really core to everything we do. The cooking TikTok is you coming into Everhearth and getting food, and we have a Discord community where it's the people of Everhearth hanging out in Everhearth, chatting amongst them as an adventurers. You can meet up and play D&D and share your stories, and there's so much of what a tavern is what we try to emulate in kind of the pillars of the business, which is like shopping from the barkeep to get your gear for your adventures and stuff like that.
Why, and this is skewing from the script just a little bit, but something that really struck me as you guys were describing it is kind of that emphasis on comfort, on welcoming, and it being a wide net for people. So do you remember at what point that became a design principle for you guys and became something that you would build around and would kind of make important, and why you think that's important for your business and your presence in the tabletop space?
I think we got some comments on some of our early TikToks, which is go along the lines of like, I feel so comfortable. Today's been awful. Thank you for this. And that's like, oh my God, my heart. And feels so good. Yeah. And like knowing that this random person on the internet came across our content and felt better was so rewarding. And that feeling became kind of what we wanted to chase. We already kind of had the vague idea. We came up with the name of Everhearth before this, and that was kind of the overarching theme, but it wasn't really core to us until we started getting those comments and the feedback and that feeling that really drove home like this is the direction we wanted to take.
Yeah, and I think getting those comments also probably pushed us to create the Discord as well, because that's where a lot of people can come in and interact more with us and with others over more than just TikTok or Instagram comments.
Mm-hmm. The Discord has been super rewarding and something when I think of Everhearth, I kind of immediately think of the Discord and the kind of the tavern family we're growing there, and like logging in and seeing people chatting and saying how their day is and figuring out playing D&D together. And like there's a new D&D group in our Discord. It's an experienced DM and I believe all entirely new players, and seeing them in their little voice chat having their first game was like, oh my God, like this is happening because of what we're building. And that was so cool. And so like chasing more of that growth of spreading this community and this feeling in this place for more people to feel safe and welcome and have fun at is definitely the goal.
So obviously a lot of your growth has been based off of, kind of social media, TikTok, that sort of thing. So just kind of briefly, what has your experience been like as humans who are now visible online and are no longer just kind of the anonymous small accounts that can just exist and like things? I mean, especially obviously for you, Chloe, where you are the person doing not all but a lot of the cooking videos. You are the one doing a lot of the cosplaying and that sort of thing. But what has that been like for the both of you, especially as you continue to grow, continue to put stuff out, continue to be on Discord and kind of be more present, I guess?
We don't really see anything happen in person, but like people who come into the Discord and they want to chat with us and they already feel like they kind of know us and we're already friends, and we're always welcoming and happy to see them. And we've had an astonishingly great culture among the people that come and hang out with us.
Yeah, everybody's very positive. Like in TikTok, for the most part, on our videos are positive comments. In the Discord, it's all positive. We also have a small group of Patreoners that we have live streams with once a month, and that's always positive.
Yeah, we super look forward to those.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been IRL very positive as of today.
So kind of as an extension of that, I'm curious. You guys have been very successful, in the tabletop space. You've been growing. You've been doing more dice. You've been able to offer more things and grow in fun ways. So, do you guys have any perspectives or advice that you would give to people who are looking to kind of be I can't think of a better word, a retailer, a shop, a business, whatever, in the tabletop space, kind of based on your year or 2 years of doing so, even if it is just, here's what I would have told myself, when we were starting a couple years ago.
Yeah, so I think if you have like a good product and you're ready to sell it, Etsy's a pretty good starter platform to use. Drew's the one that would set everything up and sell everything. And we have a couple gripes about it, but I'll let him speak about like getting Etsy going at least.
Etsy is a phenomenal starting point. It starts you way ahead of the curve of a whole bunch of other solutions. And so I have zero regrets with us going on Etsy. We wanted to expand into being able to offer more things beyond the platform could handle. And so for mostly just growth reasons, we wanted to get off of Etsy. And also it lets us take advantage of Jack's digital marketing skill to get us a bit more Google savvy. But definitely the biggest advice I would have is to just go for it and just make. There's so much analysis paralysis that can happen, and you're overthinking how something works or how something is supposed to look. It's really easy to lock yourself up in trying to perfect everything.
Yeah, and you can just start with like an MVP, a basic, like I want to post this group of products to Etsy, and if I mess up some descriptions or whatever, it doesn't matter, I can fix it later. But I have it up there and it's ready to go. And that was kind of our mentality for when we started our site shop. We have like our MVP. We're getting all of our products up. It's all working, but it's not like exactly designed how we like it. But it's up and it's there.
It works.
And
it does the thing it's supposed to.
Yeah, and it's good. And we've made 2 sales on it already. And it's been up for a few days.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah,
done is better than perfect.
Yeah, exactly. You can perfect it later, but if you're always going to try to perfect something, it's never going to get finished. So you just need to think of what your MVP is. I want these things up on my shop, and that's the base of it. And then you can build on that.
And another kind of sidebar tip is finding interest groups on Reddit. And there was a lot of them on Facebook for Chloe's Handmade Dice. We were looking up handmade dice interest groups, and a lot of them have rules about how you can advertise to them and in what ways you can. That was hands down most effective for us. So if you're trying to get started in any sort of niche on selling some sort of product, finding interest groups and advertising to them, because you already have filtered down your kind of customer pool to people who have already displayed significant interest in that type of product. So your efforts will go much farther.
You guys have talked a little bit about a little bit as to who's responsible for what, right? Kind of between the three of you, at least early on. Now that you've been doing it again for 1 to 2 years, ramping up, and also very quickly ramping up in the last year post TikTok. But what is the experience of owning a business together as friends, as fiancés, as, kind of just a group of people? What has that experience been like? What has it been like to own a business with people, to go viral together? And has that changed your guys' relationships or your impressions of each other?
I think it's brought us closer together.
Oh yeah.
We love working on Everhearth stuff. So when it pays off, where we all celebrate together, we have like our little group chat. We're like, oh my gosh, look at this. Let's all celebrate. And for Drew and I, at least, being in the same household, we like to set aside just times of the day to work on things and just bang out some content. And yeah, that's what we call it. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, bang it out, bro.
Right, but like, where's the lie? That is correct. Yes, for sure.
But yeah, it's been really good working together, and we all are very respectful of boundaries. So like if someone has something going on in their life and they're kind of falling behind, we're very accepting of it because we're not in a rush to do anything. There's no deadlines. We have like times that we wish things will be live and be ready to go,
Yeah.
but that doesn't
Yeah,
always happen. Like our shop, we were planning on getting it up like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Nah, it did not happen. 2 days ago is when it was. Yeah.
Yeah, as Everhearth is growing and now we have more balls that we're juggling, we were able to be scrappy and unofficial with everything in the earlier days, and now we have a whole bunch of things we're keeping on top of and having to delegate and give to who can do them best. So now we have a little bit more structure. We have a weekly meeting to just talk about what we did and what we're going to do and any discussions we need to have. We have a whole I spent ages making this huge planner on Notion for all of our tasks and everything. And so that's setting up systems to make things a little bit more serious has been helpful. But the core, like we're just friends doing friend stuff, has been consistent throughout and definitely helpful.
Yeah. Got to be productive though. So we have our task sheet and our stand up.
All the fun corporate lingo that you start to fold into. Yep, we catch ourselves using it a lot, and we all hate it, but it is useful.
Got to circle back on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Business hat in the morning.
Yeah.
I really think we should have a check-in and maybe start to think about our Q1 goals for 2023. It's I mean, shoot me, but also yes, it is helpful, so it's a problem. And I feel like I'm asking this question a little bit out of order, but again, you guys are kind of in a very interesting position in the tabletop role-playing game space, and that's one of the many reasons why I was really interested to talk to you guys, is because you are part, you have a Discord where there is community, you have a website with a store, you have a kind of robust TikTok presence that is sort of about the store, but is also, kind of more experiential and very vibey, and very just kind of like, this is a fun thing and it's useful and whatnot. Whereas, I look at myself, obviously it's like, well, yeah, no, I make podcasts and I tweet. And those are that is my place in the tabletop role playing game world. And there are producers, there are writers, there are all kinds of stuff. So how do you guys label yourselves, if you do? Kind of how do you kind of self-visualize who you guys are in the space, what footprint you have, and that kind of thing?
I think it wraps around to that whole concept of Everhearth Inn is a place.
Yeah.
And so that's our cheat out of saying what we do.
Yeah. No.
Well, if you think about it, so it's a place. It's a tavern where people can sit around and eat, or I guess an inn, Everhearth Inn, where people can sit around and go to the kitchen where we post our recipes or have our TikTok content. They could go to the armory, which is where our shop is. They could go to the library and pick out a book, which is where we post kind of our more varietal blog content.
We have a lot of really comprehensive D&D class guides that Jack has been working on, and there's just
cool.
If you wanted to know the perfect build for a certain class and everything about different feats, it's super useful. And so, just having this variety of content is hard to describe in what we do. It's easier to describe it in what Everhearth is. And so that we get to kind of have this cop out and say this umbrella term of there's many things that make Everhearth what it is, which is rewarding in its own way.
Definitely. And indeed, it has been rewarding, and other people have noticed it in that you guys are any nominees, in fact.
Indeed.
Yes, we are.
See, seamless transition. That's
there
why
you go.
I'm the hostess with the mostest.
Yes.
And it was a very very fun for us as we were scrolling through when they released who was kind of a finalist for the Ennie. And for those who don't know, the Ennies are tabletop role-playing awards voted upon by a panel, I guess is the best way to put it. It's kind of Oscars-y, kind of Emmys-y, you get it. But we were scrolling through and looking for familiar names, specifically for us, people that we actually knew, instead of just like, oh yeah, that's that whatever, that publisher, that whatever. And we saw you guys, and it was like, wait a second, that's right, David, right? That's the one. So best online content is the category. So what exactly were you guys like submitting, and kind of what did you view as your online content? I guess that was good to nominate.
So Jack really owned 95% of this, and it was, the submission period was right when our first cooking TikTok started kind of taking off. I don't think we hit the big jackpot yet, or maybe it happened just around the meatballs video.
It was before anything went like super viral.
Okay. But we were getting some traction. And so he just submitted our everhearth.com/thekitchen, which is where all of our recipes are. He actually wrote it up for us. So here's Jack in spirit. I won't do his British accent, but just envision it.
Darn.
It was a bit of a rolling discovery. I'd never heard of the Ennies before, despite being a fairly longtime D&D fan. Then when looking at another D&D blog, I saw they had on their site that they were an Ennie Award winner. So out of curiosity, I Googled it and read all about it and its history. Whilst on their website,
kind of doing a British thing almost,
yes,
in a way, based off of word choice.
Yeah. Whilst on their website, I saw they were open for nominations for the 2022 awards. So I scrolled through the awards out of curiosity, and that's where I saw best online content. I read the description and thought, hey, that's sort of what we do. I went down to the forum and it all looked fairly straightforward. So I just thought, what's the harm? I knew from our TikTok following that people genuinely really loved seeing the content. So that gave me the confidence to fill it out. I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but I remember describing the type of content that you guys were producing and an overview of who we were and why we love expanding the world of role playing into not just at the gaming table. And then we didn't hear anything back for 4 or 5 months. So we all kind of forgot about it. And then until David reached out to Chloe, and I remember he brought it up saying like, hey, there's this thing I submitted for us. I don't think we'll get it. And that was back when it was submitted.
Oh, yeah, Jack said that. Yeah. And then David, he's like, congratulations. I'm like, what? He's like, the Emmy nominee? And I was like, the what? So I had to go get a recap from Jack.
You're really pinning a lot of self-worth on this nomination.
Couldn't sleep at all.
What I'm hearing. Yeah.
We were all just flabbergasted. And like
Jack didn't think we would get it.
No, it was a total shot in the dark. And so there was like 2 minutes of like, holy cow, like congratulating each other and like, Jack, fantastic job. We're here because of you. And so after that settled in, we're like,
then
shit.
Panic settled in after that. So because we needed to figure out how we were gonna like promote this and get the votes so that way we could win.
And so the week of voting was 2 weeks before we were moving cross country, and the week before we were selling at our first convention.
Yeah, so we had a lot going on. We were selling at a convention, and we had to promote all over the place.
We filmed like 9 TikToks in 2 days. Like from when we were nominated until we moved, we were doing Everhearth and packing for a move, like literally every waking moment. So it was very stressful, but super cool and super fun. And it was very rewarding. Big, like, the numbers on TikTok and on our website is one thing, but then like an actual award nomination is like a different category of its own, and really cool.
We didn't end up winning, but it was still like really cool.
And we were against some really, really cool creators. So it was, again, we're just going to
really cool.
Give it our best shot. And it was a cool experience overall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's assessment of the Ennies is that being nominated is the cool part. And then like, if you win, great, that's awesome. But like, just being nominated is genuinely like its own kind of merit. Hence why everyone brags about being Ennie nominated, as they should. You talked a little bit already about kind of the affirmation, the validation of some people latching onto your stuff, seeing people play in your Discord servers. Are you guys people who awards and nominations and stuff? Like, does that what does that say to you? Does that mean anything to you, or are you just like, yeah, it was cool, and now we go back to doing the work of running a digital tavern?
It doesn't really change our outlook on what we produce because we get a lot of validation from people about how they really enjoy the content that we make, and being able to have a nomination to also convey that is really cool as well. But I really value when people come into our videos and they talk about how much we have like made them happier that day, or they really love what we posted. They're gonna use that recipe and show their friends. Or like, I remember one comment that said like, my dad was watching this with me and he loved the recipe and he's gonna make it this weekend. And it's just things like that really validate. And I do
Mm-hmm.
think that having the awards are really cool as well, but having that more one-on-one, like,
It's about the community.
yeah, the community
Yeah.
validation. That's what really keeps me going.
Mm-hmm. And it'll be easy to chase whatever weird sub things that we do that might get more views, but in the end, the content itself is something we're excited to make, and the feeling of
Yeah.
like, I as a viewer watching this am entertained and feel good and enjoy this content, and saying this video is objectively better done than the previous one, and we keep on refining and improving and kind of grinding this real life skill is a kind of a game on its own, and definitely a fun part to build.
So where are you guys hoping that this all goes? And it's I think a particularly interesting question for you guys, because like we've kind of covered, you've kind of been building and expanding and kind of reaching and testing kind of throughout, it sounds like, to an extent. So where are you guys hoping that things go? What are your goals? Or what's your kind of guiding vision? Whatever.
I guess my first goal for it probably be a while in the future, is to be able to work on this full time. It is a passion project, and it's truly like something that I really enjoy doing, and it's very rewarding. And if it's something that I would be able to wake up every day and do, I would do it.
Mm. Yeah, I had this kind of oh snap moment where I think it was a few months or like a year ago now, where there was a big lottery going on, and I was just envisioning like, oh, if I won $1 billion, what am I doing tomorrow? Like, I buy all the 17 Lamborghinis, and of course, and uh, after all of that, and it's just the rest of your life ahead of you. What am I doing? And I just like without hesitation was like, oh yeah, D&D stuff. Um, and so then that kind of snapped forward, or like, okay, like I don't have to wait to retire to try and make this a real thing. And so the end goal of doing this full time is super driving and definitely where we want to be. I have this kind of long term vision of envisioning Everhearth as an actual fantasy tavern and walking in, and it's bustling, which is my favorite word.
Mm-hmm.
Just a whole bunch of people chatting and happy and having a good time, and trying to achieve that in as many ways as that we can, of really forming this place into something bigger that a whole bunch of people are excited to be a part of. Um, and if that's just expanding and growing on what we are like now, or like a real life place would be super cool, but that's its own bag of worms. But maybe like VR type places, like have a Everhearth Inn in VR, which would be super cool. But that's more of just a project instead of the whole business. But just growing Everhearth into the place that we dream it to be, and being able to do that as our life passion would be super rewarding.
Chloe,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
it is time for the Reckless Talk lightning round, the
Let's
dire gauntlet that faces all of our guests. I will warn you, it is draining, it is taxing, it will have you confront your very soul and all that you hold dear.
I'm already sweating.
As you should be. I give the same spiel to everyone as dramatically as I say it. There are no wrong answers. It can be a one-word answer. I will give a kind of appropriate amount of time to pause and be like, is that all they're saying? Cool, great, we'll move on. It could be, well, really, I'm actually just going to now tell a 5-minute story in response to that question. And I will say, cool, sick, awesome. Also saying, I don't really have a good answer for that is also very acceptable. We ask the same questions to everyone in the same order every single time. Are you guys ready?
So
I think so.
So ready.
We'll do Chloe and then Drew, and that will be the pattern in response.
Okay.
Question 1. Is your glass half full or half empty?
I would say it depends on the day, but typically if it has to do with Everhearth, I'm half full for sure. Because I'm always proud of the content that we produce, and even if it doesn't perform like we thought it would, I'm always proud of it and hoping for the future.
I would say I'm half full and annoyed about trying to find methods of filling the other half.
What excites you creatively, spiritually, and or emotionally?
I'll speak creatively. Good fantasy content, and I know that's very vague, but whether it's just like imagery or like role play videos or video games or content from my favorite TikTokers, I'll watch them. That just inspires me to like make things or like get a mood board and it's all fantasy, and then I make some like cool looking dice. Yeah, I think that would be just fantasy content. It's obviously what I enjoy.
I love seeing others have fun and seeing their faces light up from stories that we're telling in D&D, and like I said before, like getting nervous and terrified and happy and excited, and seeing my story play out in their faces and their reaction. And when you can see that they're waiting for the next thing that's going to happen, that is absurdly rewarding and drives me to make more of that type of intrigue and interest and excitement. I also really love dreaming stuff up to music. I'm a huge metalhead. We're both huge metalheads. Pretty much every single boss fight I've written has been dreamt up listening to just super hard metal.
Hell yes.
And so music gets me in the headspace to create, and seeing the reaction on my players from what I've created keeps me coming back.
What does not excite you creatively, spiritually, and or emotionally?
Recently, website user interface bugs. We just putting up the shop on our site. There's just little intricacies that I'm like, you know what? Time to go into focus mode. No emotion for me.
Yeah. Encumbrance mechanics. And any choice that takes away choice from the players. I hate stunning players. It's the most boring thing in the world if they can't act for the round. And locking them up unless it's feeding some sort of jailbreak plotline. But anything that prevents a player from doing what they'd like to do within reason, I drastically stay away from.
What is your favorite sound?
Ooh. So part of the reason Drew and I moved across the country was for my favorite sound, which was when you go hiking to like a remote place and you can just hear wind and wildlife.
I'm the exact same. Just the feeling of crunching leaves through Skyrim, but trying to produce that in real life, which I grew up in the Chicago area my whole life, and so I've heard just road noise everywhere, always. And being able to, like, when we moved here, our first night, we're right next to a forest, and I hear this kind of dull roar outside. I'm like, oh, it's just road noise. And then I listen more. I'm like, no, that's like a chorus of crickets. and it's just the forest being the forest, and that was super super cool, and definitely what we chase now.
What sound do you hate?
Styrofoam makes you want to die.
Yes,
I opened
100%.
up a package the other day and it was just a lid of styrofoam, and I have to like close my
Oh, the
eyes and
worst.
grit my teeth. Oh, it's so bad. Even just thinking about it, I'm
Yep.
For me, going off the previous answer, I just hate road noise. I like when there's a lack of it.
What's your favorite word?
I'm gonna cheat and say a phrase if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It is your space to do with as you will.
so I'm gonna cheat and say a phrase. It's can I roll for stealth? Because I love with my characters, I just love like stealthing in or out of situations and kind of being like the fly on the wall for the party. A lot of times during combat, I won't, unless I'm a sorcerer. I'm usually a rogue if I'm not a sorcerer. So I'll be doing like other things and messing with the environment as opposed to directly attacking the baddie. So that's my phrase.
My favorite word is probably bustling, and I use it so much to the point that my players make fun of me because I use it so much.
You've used it in this interview.
Exactly.
I used to make a tally with one of my friends of how many times Drew would say bustling during our D&D session.
Yep. And so describe a busy street. What other word are you going to use? It's a bustling street, and it's just so useful to convey busyness.
What is your least favorite word?
I don't think I have a least favorite word. Oh, actually, I would say my least favorite word is mansion, because when I was like 7 years old or something, I saw mansion and I started saying it so many times until it didn't sound like a word anymore. And every time I think about it, I'm like, that's not a real word. Mansion's not a real word. So there's not much logic behind it other than that.
Got it. Yeah.
My least favorite word is drab, because I think that word just encapsulates its definition so well. It is so boring.
What tabletop role-playing game or D&D monster or foe have you not faced or run that you would love to?
I want to fight a full-size dragon.
Hell yeah.
Drew's ran his campaign. We fought a like mini version of a dragon and a reskinned black dragon, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
However, I just really like how dragons look and that they can fly and all that stuff. So I want to fight a real one at some point.
It's right there in the name of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's guaranteed.
It's Dungeons and small dragons, but not full size dragons.
I really want to run a full strength illithid.
Hell yeah.
I've run it before, but like I said, how I'm afraid to remove character choice. They have their one ability where they nosh on their brains, and if you get 0 HP from that, you instantly die. Absolutely terrified of doing that to anybody. Just fastest way to just completely ruin somebody's day. And so maybe for a one shot where character lives are less sacred, I'll run some real bad illithids, and there'll be some crunch time.
What is your favorite adventure of all time? And this is a nebulous question. It can be an adventure that you ran, that you wrote, that you were a part of, that you watched in an actual play. It could be an adventure movie like 1999's The Mummy. Whatever that means to you, what is your favorite adventure?
My favorite adventure. Okay, so my favorite adventure is one of Drew's like campaign plot branches, I guess. We were in this abandoned spaceship.
We play sci-fi D&D.
Oh yes, let me preface that. We have a sci-fi D&D campaign. So we were on this, our party enters this abandoned spaceship, and we're working for this corporation that's trying to salvage data from this ship. So as I'm like exiting the head of the ship and heading to the tail of the ship, I see like an alien in the doorway peeking out and it has like acid dripping out of its mouth. And then all of a sudden it disappears. And then we start walking like more towards that direction. And then it ambushes us from the ceiling. And I was like actually scared during this. So that's why it's one of my favorites, because I was just like so like nervous because things were all dark and like I didn't know where it was going to come from. Um, and yeah, it ended up being we walked into this room and there were a bunch of capsules with like people in them, and there was like data on these capsules, and it was this group of scientists that were experimenting on these people, and the alien was actually one of the experiments. So yeah, that was my favorite one because I was actually very scared during that session.
Mine is literally the same. I am so proud of
Oh, yeah.
that whole quest. It is just my masterpiece. And we were running this spooky spaceship ambiance sound, and the vibes were just right. And I can vividly remember everybody's faces when the monster came out, and they were just so disgusted and they hated me. Like, why do you make me do this?
The best.
It was so much fun. And that introduced that the corporation they were working for were the bad guys, and introduced a whole bunch of problems. And it was a good time.
What is your favorite tabletop role-playing game character of all time? And it can be one of your characters. It can be one you played alongside. It could be one you watched on an actual play. It could be whatever the question means to you.
So I'm going to say for the exact same Cyberpunk campaign, my character for that Cyberpunk campaign, I'm a hacker, which is kind of like a homebrew roguelike character. And I get to like hack into different technology and make it do fun things, or like flick switches, or like on the alien ship, I was able to like hack a big crane that lifted up a cargo box and dropped it on things. So yeah, it's just I really like that character. It's fun to mess with it. It's a little bit different than a regular D&D campaign. So it's like new stuff. It's really cool.
Mine is my dwarf fighter Fargrim, who was my first ever D&D character in that very first campaign. He peacefully retired for me to take on the full-time DM role, and now I just envision him always in Everhearth Inn, just constantly pounding ale, just living it up. And so there's very fond memories of Fargrim, and I know he's happy and relaxed.
Final question. What gives you hope?
I would say all the support we get from people for Everhearth keeps me going, makes me feel good, makes me feel like what I'm doing is good and correct, and I'm going in the right direction with things.
For me, it's those heartfelt comments we get on our content saying how we've improved their day, we've given them a place to rest, which is kind of the end goal. And the people that we have in our Discord, the community we're growing on Discord and Patreon, everybody's so positive and just happy to be amongst each other with this common interest and this common goal of making Everhearth this good place. And that just really drives me forward.
Dramatic pause for effect.
Excellent.
Drew and Chloe, congratulations. You have run the entire Reckless to Talk gauntlet, including the famed lightning round. You remain standing as appreciation for your excellence, for your steadfastness, for your et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please take the opportunity to tell everyone who you are once more, where to find you, how to support you, all the good stuff.
We are Everhearth Inn. Our website is everhearthinn.com. We just launched our new store, which includes a smoking hot refund policy. It makes for great holiday gifts. Get some handmade stuff at all sorts of different price points.
We also have a Patreon where you can vote on what fantasy recipes we cook next, or you could get early access to our content, store discounts, and much more.
We've got super comprehensive D&D class articles that you can check out to dream up new builds and learn all about different feats and stuff.
And you can also join our Discord to be a part of our community. You can join in on D&D games, take part in our goals support group to work on your own real-life quests, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
You can find us on TikTok is a big platform for us. Instagram, we have some long form educational D&D running the game content on YouTube. Plan on doing more of those in the future. But for now, you can find everything about us at everhearth.com.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you guys. I hope you had a good time. And thank you, everyone. Go check them out. Get your dices, get your ales, get your good cooking content, all of the good things.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.